All right. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about how Dave Smith was crushed by Coleman Hughes in a debate on Israel. We are going to talk about the ongoing government shutdown, and we are going to talk about the latest situation in Israel, and how the Hamas deal is going, and what I got wrong in the last episode. Okay, so let's get into the show. So I'm a little bit on the road now, so this might not come out. This recording might not be as great quality, but I really wanted to get an episode out. So here goes. So Coleman Hughes did a debate with comedian Dave Smith. Dave Smith is doing a lot of these debates on Israel, and this one was the latest one. I'm a fan of both of them. I mean, I have been a fan of Dave Smith until recently, until I until I think his views on Israel became undefendable. But I've been following Dave Smith for years. He's a good libertarian, and it gives me no joy to be able to see him be catastrophically wrong on an issue. I've been following him for so long that the first time I discovered Dave Smith was on a repost on Facebook by none other than Milo Yiannopoulos. That's how long it is. Milo hasn't been on Facebook for a really long time. I think he just came back, but he was off for years. And he posted a joke about Trump from Dave Smith's Libertas. And I thought it was great. And I liked the whole Libertas. And I was looking, who's this guy, Dave Smith? And it turns out he has this podcast. So I've been listening for years. And he's very good on a lot of issues. And from the perspective of should America be supporting Israel's wars, that is a good libertarian question to ask. In my position in general is that there should be no foreign aid, but once there is foreign aid, why shouldn't I be able to lobby to where it goes less than anyone else? But that aside, Dave Smith has had a problem with Israel's cause. He's felt that it's unjust, and Dave has done really well in a lot of these debates because the people that are debating him do not take him seriously enough to really have like a good substantive debate, and they keep yelling at each other, and the Charles Murray debate was just like him just being really patronizing, like, have you ever been there? And they just got stuck in these like points, and it's like, no, what was so powerful about the Coleman Hughes debate is, besides the fact that Coleman Hughes is absolutely brilliant, but he just had a cordial debate with Dave, and they spoke about the way they view things, and they let each other speak. And they got to their points of disagreement, and they moved on. And this is the most important thing about free speech, is that when someone's wrong about something, especially if they're influential, and the right way to deal with it is to let them speak and to let them have it, to let them express their views and then show them why they're wrong. And this is what took place on this debate. And so I just want to show the part where Dave Smith thinks, okay, he has been arguing with Coleman Hughes about whether Israel has been willing to do peace in the past, if that's a record, and Coleman Hughes clearly shows that it has. They did peace with Egypt, they did peace with Lebanon. I mean, with Jordan, they clearly have been shown to be willing to do peace. So here, Dave Smith comes with his zinger. Well, he thinks he has the upper hand here, and that's
so badly right now in the eye of the public. And I think one of the major problems here is that, like, if you just look, even saying we offered, let's say they offered them their 100% statehood 5 times, which is not true, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that were true. So what? Like, it's on the level of just being
so
like,
what?
because
the only way the conflict will end is when there's a partition.
Well, I was about to. I obviously wasn't done with the sentence, so I'm obviously about to say the so what. Yeah, dude. If you had an institution of slavery or something like that, and you go, well, we offered them their freedom 5 times and they didn't take it. It's like, who cares? Stop enslaving them. That has nothing to do with anything. It's like, look, dude, you don't need a partner to just stop the occupation. Statehood, nobody in the Enlightenment world views statehood as a gift to be chosen from one people to give to another people. I mean, what is going on here? Does Israel have a right to the West Bank and to Gaza? Is that theirs? If it's theirs, the millions of people who live there do not have citizenship or voting rights or any natural rights under Israeli law. So if that is Israel, then they're not a democracy. They're an apartheid regime. And if it's not Israel, well, then what right do they have to be the ones who decide whether these people get a state or not? This is like, I just don't find any other example where any modern nation acts this way, and this is acceptable.
What you're recommending is what Israel did with Gaza in 2005. They left unilaterally without getting a peace deal in return.
So Dave Smith's essential argument is that they don't have, if you are holding somebody in a position that is unjust, so then there is no justification to keep that situation, even at great cost. But let's see how Coleman dispenses with before I discuss it, because the analogy to slavery is absurd.
Okay, so let's get into the withdrawal from Gaza. I mean, like, as you know, right? Like, Sharon's top advisor, the formaldehyde. I'm sorry, what's his name again?
Dov Weissglass.
Dov Weissglass. Go read Dov Weissglass's quote on what the whole deal was there.
I'll read it to you right now, Dave.
Okay.
I'll read it to you because I've heard you quote this before, and actually, I had Youssef Menayer, a Palestinian activist, on my podcast, and he said what I think you're about to say, which is that Dov Weissglass, in a Haaretz interview in 2004, said the point of the Gaza withdrawal was to put the peace process in formaldehyde.
Yeah, and he said everything that the entire Palestinian state. No, I'm just adding to the quote. This was what he said, but sure, go ahead.
Okay, so let's add more to the quote, because I have never seen someone on your side of this argument quote the full context of his interview honestly and in full context. So this is what he said just before the idea of putting the peace process in formaldehyde. This is him. He goes, when we entered the prime minister's office, he means 2002, Sharon still believed he would be able to achieve a very long-term interim agreement, an agreement of 25 or 20 or 15 or 10 or 5 years, a truce. But very quickly, we discovered that we were up against a stone wall, that when you get to the decision-making center, nothing happens. We reached that conclusion after years of thinking otherwise, after years of attempts at dialogue. But when Arafat undermined Abu Mazen at the end of the summer of 2003, we reached the sad conclusion that there was no one to talk to, no one to negotiate, hence the disengagement plan. So in context, what he is saying is that when Prime Minister Ariel Sharon was elected in 2002, his plan A was to get a 25-year peace truce with the Palestinians. When he realized that they didn't want that, or that Arafat didn't want that and wouldn't let Abbas go for it, only then did he pivot to say, okay, our next best option is just to get out of Gaza unilaterally. Now, I think that is very important context if you're going to quote the Dov Weissglass interview in the future, because it speaks to this whole argument we're having is what were Israel's intentions leaving the Gaza Strip? And it's highly relevant that the aide you're quoting said plan A was to get a truce. And the hope is that if you get 25 years of a truce, well, then people get used to not fighting. I'm waxing now. They didn't say this, but my guess is
right. I get your point, but yes. Yeah, look, I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's anything dishonest about leaving.
And then, sorry, if you don't mind, just 30 more seconds, and then say whatever you want. After the Gaza disengagement plan, also a few settlements in the West Bank were also nobody talks about that, but also taken out. What does Ariel Sharon do? He starts a new party. He starts a new party called Kadima. The platform of Kadima is to eventually withdraw unilaterally from the West Bank.
So I just want to recap over what was said over here before we go into this a little bit more. And again, he's making some very good points, but he's saying that Israel really went for peace. But let's say the way Dave is presenting it is correct. That they went out of Gaza to ensure that the two-state process wouldn't have happened. That still leaves the Palestinians with agency. Let's say the Palestinians in Gaza, instead of creating Hamasistan over there, had created a peaceful society, and they'd said, look, the Palestinians are capable of self-rule. We look, they're capable of running a state. The whole world would not have allowed Israel to not go further in peace. You know, the only reason why Sharon was right that it put the peace process on formaldehyde is because the Palestinians are hell-bent on destroying Israel, and they're not interested in peace. All right, I'll let them go further, because the analogy to slavery is absurd. The Israelis have been doing everything they can to achieve peace with the Palestinians, and they've never found a partner for peace. They've never found anybody who's willing to do it. There is nobody on the Palestinian side that has ever wanted peace with Israel, that has only wanted destruction. Dave also seems to think that everything started in 1967, which is also nonsense. Go look up when Yasser Arafat got his career started. He got it started before. Sharon became famous before 1967 when he was going in and destroying Arab fedayeen that were coming in from the West Bank. It's just nonsense.
So the point I'm making is not just it was plan A and plan B. It's actually deeper than that. The reason they switched to plan B is because they came to the belief, based on Arafat's behavior, that Arafat actually did not want the political process to lead to a true peace, right? So if you believe that the peace process would essentially be a gift box with peace on the label, and then the moment you open it up, you get terrorism. If you come to that belief based on the behavior of your negotiating partner, that they intend to take whatever they can get out of the negotiations and then launch terror, then thwarting the peace process is not thwarting a peaceful a situation like America and Canada. You're not thwarting a true two-state solution. You believe, based on the behavior of your negotiating partner, that you're thwarting what would essentially be a situation where terrorists take over parts of the West Bank. Oh, this is the other part of the interview that is crucial to this point, is that Sharon came to believe that a Palestinian state would be too weak to control its violent minority, i.e. the Fatah.
So what he's saying is that any agreement with the Palestinians would also result in just another Hamasistan. And so what is Israel obligated to allow the Palestinians to do this to themselves and then bear the costs of another Gaza in the West Bank?
Would not be strong enough, would not have the state capacity to prevent Hamas, to prevent it from coming basically another Lebanon, a Lebanon where half the country is controlled by a terrorist group, right? And then you're as a leader of Israel, you're basically telling people, well, if we really come to believe in good faith that this guy is not a partner for peace, and we've got to wait till we get a real partner for peace, giving him two states will essentially mean that we're going to be in a situation where terrorists control strategic high ground, a place from which they can much more easily launch rockets and missiles and smuggle anything over the border with Jordan, which would be very easy to do. And you're essentially telling your people, I'm going to put you in much more jeopardy than you're already in. So this is the trade-off Israel faces.
Yeah, it's like, which I know I've quoted before when talking about this, but it's that old Thomas Jefferson quote about slavery, where he's like, we have the wolf by the ear and can neither afford to hold on to it nor safely let it go. And, like, it's like, I just, Coleman, they've been occupying them since 1967. Are they concerned about what might happen if they take their boot off their neck? Okay. But they still don't get to do that to people. We got a real problem.
You do get to do that to people, because those people are a bunch of savages who have shown the capacity to kill them. Those people started wars. They keep losing wars, and then we have to. And then what? Israel just obligated to give them back the capacity to start the war again? Abba Eban used to refer to the 48 borders as Auschwitz lines. He's obligated to put Israel back in that situation, some leader of Israel, because slavery was a situation where they took people from a different place and brought them to a new place and took away all their rights. How is it comparable?
With black crime in this country, Coleman, but if I said, let's reinstitute slavery and that will take care of the problem with black crime, I think you'd go, yeah, you don't have a right to do that. And if not having slavery means that it's a little bit more dangerous in some areas, tough, deal with that.
This is the moment when I realized that Dave Smith has actually become stupid, and that it's a very interesting thing, and we might do a separate episode on this, with people about Tucker and Ken Owens. It appears to be that there's some sort of mental illness associated with anti-Semitism, with turning against your own people or hating the Jews, because this is clearly nonsense.
You don't, Israel, look, dude, this is just so obvious. It's bananas to me that anybody who lives in a first world country on this side of the Enlightenment can just not say, look, Israel's got two options here. Your options, if you want to be a moral country or whatever, your options are, you can say, we can't give them their own state, and so we're just annexing all of this land and giving citizenship to all the Palestinians, and we will all live under one state together. Or you can stop occupying them militarily and let them have their own, autonomy. Those are the options. You can't just keep your boot on these people's neck forever because you're worried about what.
Just one point over here. Dave keeps talking about the boot on their neck. Palestinians have never had a boot on their neck. The Palestinians live better than any Arab population in the Middle East. The fact that Israelis have better rights than Palestinians is a fair point. But there are no Palestinians, and there are very few Arabs that enjoy more rights in the countries of their own than the Palestinians. It's just a different brutal dictatorship. So, and what type of society would the Palestinians would then immediately have the boots off their neck? Look what happened when Israel left Gaza. The Palestinians are worse off. No, not because some of your leaders made bad decisions, because your culture is savage and corrupt. The Palestinian people made bad decisions. I'm so sick of people taking agency away from the Palestinians. The reason why the Palestinian leadership does not want peace is because the Palestinians don't want peace. Who are these Palestinians? They just get let off the hook? It's nonsense.
You can say, like, look, you could have made this argument about Egypt. I don't think they had a strong enough state to control their radicals or something like that. Now, we could get into a whole separate argument, which is that I think there's a very strong argument that actually Israel is going to face much more of a terrorist threat while they're occupying these areas than they would if they were to give them their own state. And I think there's lots of good reasons to suspect that. But just purely on a principled ground,
it is. How could that possibly be true? Israel pulled out of Gaza and received a bigger threat than before. What is he talking? Showing weakness to the Palestinians only makes them realize they can get what they want through violence, and this has just been proven over and over again. Or Israel has been in an armed conflict with the Palestinians since 1967, which every Arab state at the time and the Palestinians refused to settle, and until they are open to settling it, it's an armed conflict, and they're occupied until it's settled.
It's really fundamental Western civilization stuff.
So the analogy to slavery is a bad one for many reasons. But first, yes, Jefferson and Southerners in general, they feared, partly based on Haiti and other examples, that if they gave slaves freedom, it would result in a race war. And this was highly motivating for Southerners. It turned out to be completely wrong. Now, there was a lot of evidence at the time that this wouldn't happen, namely the fact that you had Black people living very peacefully all over the North with no problem. You even had free Blacks in the South with no problem. And so you would have had to cherry pick massively to look at the Nat Turner revolt, say, erase all the other evidence of peaceful coexistence.
Go on in. That's it. You don't need it now.
Between whites and Blacks, and say, we can't let these people have freedom because look at Nat Turner. Not only.
Thank you. It's definitely been a while.
This is such a good point.
One question I have for you is, why doesn't Hamas attack Egypt? Why can't they spare a single rocket for Egypt if it's all about the blockade and occupation?
No, obviously, because their hatred of Israel is on a whole different level. And also, I don't know, there's...
So then it's not all about the blockade and the...
No, it's not. No, it's not all. A lot of it's about the creation of the state of Israel. A lot of it's about the fact that they view that as their land, that a lot of them did get kicked out of. Of course, all of this stuff is involved. But anyway, back to your point, though. But, so say there was a higher risk. And again, I wasn't saying, a lot of times when people make logical analogies, people say, well, that's a bad analogy because the situations aren't the same. But there's a difference between equating two different things and making a logical analogy. The claim isn't that they're the same. But let's say there was going to be a real increase in crime, or let's say there was that some of the Black leaders were more radical and were, hold on, let me finish. Sure. And we're advocating violence. Is the answer then continue the institution of slavery? The thing is no, right? It's obvious. And look, the thing about this is with all of this stuff, I just feel like to be a defender of Israel requires you to not be fair-minded to both groups here. It requires you to think of but think about the danger that the Israelis might have to deal with if they were to give these people a
Okay, so this argument goes back and forth now. And the main point that Coleman will end up making is that the Palestinians are better off under Israel, because what will happen if they get their state? So then it would just turn into, like we said before, Hamasistan. And this is the idea that Israel is obligated to allow this to happen. Then Dave says, well, if they get attacked from this country, then they'll see. But they know they're going to get attacked from that country. They're not going to. Why should they unilaterally allow their enemies to get stronger? And this is just nonsense. Just nonsense. It's a weak analogy from slavery, and this is what happens. Anti-Semitism makes you stupid, and that's what it seems to have happened to Candace Owens and Tucker. They have become stupid. And like I said, I was a big fan of Dave Smith, and it gives me no pleasure for this to be true. And he's very good on a lot of issues, but on this thing, he's just like morally upside down. You just can't see. And what? And we should just turn over Israel to just be one of another failed Arab state? Ridiculous. All right, we spent enough time on this. All right, I wanted to get into the Israel-Hamas deal, just like our custom is on this show. We point out what we got wrong. I didn't think the ceasefire was going to go through. I was wrong about that. And because I didn't think that Hamas would agree to give away all the hostages while Israel was still occupying part of Gaza. And I think I know what I got wrong. And it's a good question. I mean, why did Hamas agree to give up their best bargaining chips? So this is what I think. At the beginning of the war, holding hostages, live hostages, was in Hamas's best interest to stay around. Meaning, what would stop Israel from just carpet bombing the whole place? Answer is the hostages. And but as the war progressed, the hostages in much of the Western world became Israel's only justification for the war. Now, that's not what I believe at all. I believe the justification for war was just one rocket being lobbed from Gaza to Israel. I think they should have wiped out the whole place before. We wiped out Hamas completely before. But that aside, Israel's one big PR win is the hostages. So at a point, it got to the point where Israel was closing in on them, and Trump had said, give them the green light to destroy them, whatever that meant. And so now is in their best interest to free the hostages, because they can still hold on in a war with Israel, and a war that becomes intensely bloody. And without the hostages there, Israel's PR battle becomes difficult to win. So what do I think is going to happen over here? Israel still controls 53% of the enclave. That is a little disingenuous, because a lot of the places where, meaning Hamas controls the population centers. I don't think Hamas will disarm. I just can't see how they'll do it. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope we can make a show about, see, I said Hamas won't disarm, and I was wrong. But what it looks like is going to happen is that until they disarm, Israel is not going to pull out. And they're going to try to prioritize reconstruction in the area where Israel is controlling, which they will gradually hand over to Arab forces. Now, I'm very concerned about that. I don't like foreign forces. But the idea seems to strangle Hamas. I don't believe in this. Again, I think that the Palestinian cause is one and the same with Hamas, but that's what I think I got wrong, and that's what I say where I think it's going to go, and we'll reevaluate when we get to it. Now, I haven't spoken on the government shutdown, so let's talk about it a little bit. So I happen to really like government shutdowns, because it shows you that government, at very best, a total monstrosity. Meaning like this. We're always told, government pays for the roads and what do we need government for? The roads and the bridges. All right, so the government's been shut down for a couple of weeks, and all the roads and bridges are fine. Why? Why is that true? Because our federal government does not cover roads and bridges. That's mostly state and local money. Our federal government does a lot of things, and a lot of those things are clearly not that important. Otherwise, you would feel intense pain if the federal government, people in the United States are paying upwards of 30% of their income to the federal government. 30% of the wealth is being stolen by the government to be used for what they call essential. And then the government closes down, and we don't even see it. And what's not happening? We don't even get affected by it. So how could that justify such a large percentage of your income and be able to just be on hold for 3 weeks? So they'll say, because the essential parts of the government are still running. This is madness. What does the government do? What are the non-essential parts? Why do they do that? So this is why neither party likes government shutdowns, because it fundamentally shows that they're unneeded, and much of their function is corrupt, and the size of government should be drastically lessened. That being said, this whole theater of government shutdowns is absurd. And I really think the Democrats are going to end up losing this one, because the Democrats' argument it has no coherent argument that they want. They should justify shutting down the government because they want healthcare that was taken, healthcare cuts that were passed in during COVID to be reinstated now. That's worth shutting down the whole government, all federal workers not to get paid. How can the Democrats justify this thing? So the answer is because they just wanted to fight with Trump, and so they have their fight. But now the problem is there's no off ramp. So who knows? Who knows how long it's going to go for? Who knows who knows who's going to win? Again, usually the party out of power that causes a shutdown loses. But all this really shows is like how much smaller we need to make the government. Because if the government can be shut down for 3 weeks and you didn't realize, that means that it does a lot of things that aren't important. And that should be a great reflection for everyone. All right, that'll do it for today, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.